Can we have roll call, please?
Yes, you may. Councilmember Shacker.
Here.
Councilmember Perkins.
Here. Here.
Thank you. Councilmember Phillips.
Here.
Councilmember McCafferty.
Here.
Councilmember Armstrong.
Here.
Vice Mayor Granillo is absent. Mayor Miller.
Here.
And our town attorney is present remotely.
Okay, item 2, discussion and review regarding the future evaluation form and process for the town manager position. I called this together because I know people weren't happy with our last format, which I got from the ICBWMAGPQY, whatever the state organization is where it came from. And so I thought, let's get together now and we could look at some ideas so that we'll be have it in place for this next year when evaluation comes up next year at this time. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Laura. Or you want to say something?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to say thank you for allowing us to go through this process, this exercise. It's always good when we can improve our processes and do things better. So Laura and I have been working diligently over the last few days to come up with this presentation for you tonight. And so I'm going to let Laura get on with that then. Great.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. As the mayor and the town manager mentioned, we want to improve our process. It's always a good thing. This is a great opportunity to improve what we already have existing. The last form, there was comments that it was not conducive to our needs, and it didn't really work well for us, even though other organizations, many municipalities use it. It just doesn't work for us. So we wanted to come up with a process that improves our performance appraisal process and incorporates performance management with that. Oh, is this not on? Oh, I think it might be dead. Okay, so I want to start out by just kind of talking about performance management and performance appraisal. A lot of times those two terms will be used interchangeably, but they actually mean two very different things. So I just kind of wanted to define those two terms to start. Performance management is a process, whereas a performance appraisal or an evaluation is actually an event. So the performance management is all the things that you do leading up to the performance evaluation. Your performance management is an ongoing year-round process or cycle, and it includes overviews, regular updates on goals. It gives clarification, it provides guidance and development review throughout the year, and it supports a continued ongoing year-round communication cycle between both parties. And it will also provide an environment where goals relate back to your big picture. What are your priorities? What is your strategic plan? And then the performance appraisal or the evaluation is the actual event, just like you had a couple weeks back. That's your event where you actually sit down with the employee and evaluate their performance against the goals that you set at the beginning of the previous review period, and then you set new goals for the upcoming period, which we are currently at right now. And that evaluation actually just provides a summary of performance and set expectations. So everything in that evaluation that you provide should just solely be a summary, and nothing in there should come as a surprise because you have been discussing everything in that evaluation for the entire previous review period. So performance management is a very strategic and systematic process, and you can make it as difficult or as easy as you want it to be. But the foundation of that performance management process is communication. Communication is key to the success of this process. So combining verbal and written components that take place throughout the year to be able to transfer information to produce greater understanding between the two parties is what we're striving for. So consistent verbal dialogue throughout the performance review period, meaning one-on-one meetings, two-way conversation, or even in group settings, or both. I prefer both if it can happen. And then also providing written, consistent written dialogue through that period, that performance management period. So the process, it starts with creating a purpose. So you need to understand, why do I want to engage in performance management? Is it to meet the strategic plan? Is it to set goals for staff? Is it, or the town manager? Or is it to address citizens' needs? Those are examples of a purpose behind performance management. And then with that, once you know your purpose, you can establish clear expectations through goals. You can also provide ongoing feedback to one another throughout that performance period once your goals are set. And then at the very end, that's when you evaluate the results. So once you have your purpose, the planning starts for performance management, and it's right off of the bat on the front end is when you start your planning process. That's when once you know your purpose, then you set your goals, your expectations, your objectives, and you tie them into your priorities for that upcoming year. And the key elements to the performance management, including clear performance standards, so everybody understands what the goals are and what the expectations are. And also another key element is it helps prioritize the workloads and identify if there's a need for additional resources. And finally, another goal is, a key element is, it sets clear goals and objectives to assure there's clarity between all parties, and it encourages buy-in and agreement on what is expected. So the key to this thing, communication. The second key is goals, setting goals. And you've probably heard of this technique. It's called S.M.A.R.T goals technique, and it's simply an acronym that people use to set goals that create a successful environment. So the acronym S.M.A.R.T stands for specific. What do you want to accomplish? What do you want to do? It has to be measurable, your goal. How do you want to measure the progress? It needs to be achievable. What skills are required for this goal? And is it truly something that we can achieve with what we have available, the tools available to us? Is it realistic? Why do you want to set this goal now? And making it timely. So is this goal something that can be completed in 3 months, 6 months? Is it a 2-year span? If it's a 2-year span, how do we condense the goal down to just focusing on this current performance management period? So using that tool it's truly helpful. And then some goals, when you're setting your goals for the individual, some goals may be more important than others, and it can be based on a variety of factors, and you may want to weight your goals. Some, like I said, some may be more important than others. Things to consider when you're weighting your goals are the value of the goal to the budget. How does it compare what you get out of it versus what you put into it? How does it impact the mission? What time period does it cover? Like I previously mentioned, is it 3 months, 6 months, 2 years? How intensive is it to staff? Do we have to coordinate with other municipalities or entities? How does it affect other goals or tasks that are already on the table? How unique of a task is it? Do we need to get subject matter experts or contractors involved to achieve our goals? What would be the impact if it's not achieved? And how does it affect the town residents? So those are some of the things that you can consider when you're setting up your goals for the performance management process. In front of you is another sample of a S.M.A.R.T goals worksheet. And I find this really helpful because you can come up with an initial goal in mind, just very basic goal, such as update the town's strategic plan. So that's your initial goal. And with that, you can go through the acronym process of, okay, specifically in this performance management period, what do I want to accomplish and who needs to be included? How am I going to measure success once we set the specifics of this goal? What skills and staff are required to achieve this goal? How relevant is it to us right now? And what type of realistic deadline do we want to apply to this goal? And with that, you can set your final SMART goal so everybody understands the expectation and is very clear on what we want to achieve. My opinion is setting SMART goals together creates agreement and buy-in, and everybody's on the same page, because we all support what we want to achieve. We also need them to be concise, but also include relevant information when you're creating them. One thing I want to mention, and should be kept in mind when you're creating whatever process you want to enhance to our existing process, is in the manager's contract with the town, there's a subsection regarding her review and evaluation process. And there are 4 elements that are included in that contract that are required to be addressed during her evaluation. So with that, and you saw these on the when we went through the evaluation process, I included that in the instructions. But with that, Cindy and I have come up with a town manager performance guide. This is a very simple, and I don't have it on the screen, but it's in front of you. This is a very simple guide that we've put together. And the reason why we want to keep it simple from the get-go is if we start out with a simple process and form and not make it too convoluted, we'll understand what the process is and the buy-in will be greater. And then from there, once we see success in the process, then we can enhance and fine-tune the process more clearly. But in this guide, what we've done is we've taken those 4 elements and we've outlined them in the form. So for example, the first element that appears in her contract states, success at fulfilling the reasonably achievable goals and performance objectives set forth by the town council in a goal-setting retreat. And then under there, we've set 2 sections, a goal and an example, update the town's strategic plan, including mission and vision. This is a very initial goal that needs to be fine-tuned if this is something that you want to do. And then once we fine-tune that SMART goal, then periodically it can be reviewed. So that's a subset of the element that is part of her evaluation. And then number 2 on the next page, that's the second element that appears in her agreement. That would be your second element, and you can create goals based upon that element. Typically, to find success in performance management, rule of thumb is to set anywhere from 3 to 6 goals to ensure that the goals assigned are achievable. But that's something that,
Yeah, and I did what, is my mic working?
I don't think so.
Talk.
Okay, that is the one thing we had a discussion about, because when we started this and I started adding goals in here, once I got to only 3 or 4, I'm like, that's not going to be enough. So I feel like 3 or 4 in this instance, because it is such a broad job description, we're going to have a little bit more than that. And once I got going, I kept adding things. But these are just examples of things that I know we need to get done this year that are good, that are important to council, that are important to the organization. And again, it's just a first draft we put together, and we're going to work on refining this. We'd like to hear your comments on if you like the form. We want to hear your comments if you like the goals, or would like to add some, or you think something is missing the mark. And you don't have to have all those answers tonight. But we can have more conversation about this. And we would like to have these adopted before the fiscal year starts, so we know what we're working on.
And I guess the question is, going back to the process, I find that when you incorporate performance management with performance evaluations, you just get more success out of the entire process. You achieve goals. There's better camaraderie. It definitely enhanced communication. And once you get to the evaluation process at the end of the year, then it's just so much simpler. Everybody's on the same page. There's no surprises. It just is it's a very healthy process.
I would like to see us also, instead of just doing an annual evaluation, maybe have a biannual review or quarterly review or
6 months is enough.
6 months,
Yeah.
just something so that,
That
you
way
know.
that we know where she is and she knows where she is.
Okay. And what I would like to see also.
Would you be opposed to more? Like a performance management review on a more consistent basis?
I'm sorry.
Because I'm thinking performance management is more of a combination of things where you're meeting as a group on a more regular basis to discuss what's on the goal sheet, meeting one-on-one, having written dialogue. It's a combination of things that is even beyond just twice a year. It's more regular, so the communication is enhanced.
Tom, you got something to say?
Yeah, who fills this out? Does she fill this out as what she'd like to do, or do we fill this out and hand it to her and say, this is what we'd like to see you do? Or both?
I think a group effort is recommended.
And that's why we started a draft, so we had somewhere to start from. And then asking you to give us input on what you think about it and if there's things you'd like to add.
I'm thinking and I've seen this SMART thing before, I'm thinking if we follow this, we fill out what we'd like to see, she fills out what she thinks she can do. We compare it at one-on-one meetings, and then like every quarter or every 6 months, we all get together and see where in the heck we're at. So at that point, we can say, well, this didn't work, let's try something else.
Yeah. And I recommend that it tie into the actual performance portion of her contract that
But it has
cites
to.
the key elements.
It has to.
Yes,
If you-
I agree.
If you blow out the contract, that does nobody any good.
Yeah. John, I noticed you sent me an email with, that I have here in front of me with the one you did, which was similar to this. Is that correct?
Yeah, they're performance measures. Those were just sample ones that I did.
Yeah,
at the
I
performance.
understand that.
Yeah.
You were just spitting stuff out.
Yeah, I have a question. I like the broad categories, fiscal management, whatever. You know, you got to have categories for the different areas in which you're going to be evaluated. And other than the mayor, who has pretty much daily contact with you, there's a section up there in your contract that maybe that needs to be a fifth area that he does separately from us, because we're not going to see this. And at least the way I read it, and it says personnel management, including overall management style and ability to lead and direct staff and ability to supervise department heads. We're not, as Tom alluded previously, we're not in a position to see that interaction. And the only interaction we might be able to base that on is the word of maybe some disgruntled employees or some that are positive. You know what I mean? It's just not going to be a fair, we're not going to get an objective, measurable read on that. But you would be in a better position because you interact with her and see her almost every day. I don't. I'm more worried about where are we on this, where are we on that, not what this department head thinks. Are you supervising it right? Are you issuing proper discipline? You know, all that stuff. So that's where we're going to have unless you were open to amending that and making a revision to that part, I just don't know how that we're going to make that fit in and satisfy that contract part.
That's a good point. That was number 4, wasn't it?
It's number 2.
Number two.
Number 2?
I didn't even fill that section out.
Yeah, I put threes
have
down
no
because
idea.
I didn't want to take rumor from a town employee that didn't like her or did like her.
Well, Laura told me that if we don't fill it out, it gets an automatic.
It goes to a 3.
But these
I
are
have no
all
idea.
good examples. These are all, I mean, I would be a little bit more elaborate personally, but that's just me. But the broad subjects and the areas, they're specific goals that have measurable outcomes that we can say success, you know, there's an easy way to know if you're achieving it. On the budgetary, you know, one of the things is, you know, as the town manager, it's your job to ensure that you prevent waste, fraud, and abuse. So you should have to be measured on a clean audit. You know what I mean? Because that's the measure on whether or not you help curtail or prevent waste, fraud, and abuse of taxpayer funds. And that's pretty much universal at every level of government, except for the president. That was an
Okay.
editorial.
Thank you.
That's
We'll,
funny.
we'll find a way to incorporate one of those
not will.
in the final. Huh?
No, it's will.
Oh,
We
I thought
will.
you said thank
We
you,
will. Oh.
I'm like, no, Will works in development services.
Yeah. And you're absolutely right. These are initial goals that we haven't run through the SMART process, but we wanted to at least give you a recommendation as a starting point so we could fine tune them if this is the route that you want to take.
What do you got, Annie? I can see the wheels turning.
They're still turning.
Okay. For me, if I take this form and I create a notebook with maybe 12 of these in there, in our one-on-one meetings, I go back to this, and as I step through the year having one-on-one meetings and the 6 month, if it's all of us put together, it's gonna turn out whether it's right, wrong, or indifferent. I don't see any way around it.
Some of these are gonna be pretty obvious. You know, the general plan, we know that you've done it or you haven't. You know what I mean?
Yeah, once
If
it's
they vote
completed,
it in,
yeah.
she's good. If they don't vote it in, she's bad.
Yeah, the succession plan, that's gonna be measured toward the end. So you'll have to have, so let's just say hypothetically, Aaron's not retiring until like 5 months after the rating period, you know, and we put that in there. So we would have to say, you know, you should have a plan in place and already have people, you know, headhunters out there looking for you, whatever, you know, for her replacement. We're not trying to get rid of you, okay?
Solely an example.
Too young to
Just an
retire.
example.
No, but I mean, we would have to think about the duration, because if she retired outside of the rating period, then you would never get fully satisfied, you'd never meet the goal. So we'd have to narrow it down to the goal that's achievable within the rating period.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, this wouldn't be at all, you need a lot more than just these, but these are a good start. I mean, I'm all in favor of this. I have no objections to this. This is what, I wish I would have given my, thing 4 or 5 months ago, and I just thought about it the night we left, and I was like, oh, I
So-
told her that.
So, Bob, you have anything to say to that, or you want anything?
No, I just don't know what her contract states.
Okay, we can get you a copy
I
of
was
that.
reading that up there, but there's more
It's in your
to it.
packet.
Okay.
It's in there.
As it relates to the evaluation, I think that is the text language, isn't it?
It is.
It is.
Okay,
And Councilmember Shacker, I can get you an actual copy of it as well.
okay.
Email it to him on his iPad.
Does this get updated? Like, does this contract that you signed, does it get redone a year from now or 2 years, or was this a one-time deal? Because personally, I'd like to revise that to just more specific language that we don't have to interpret that and apply it here. We would say you would have performance measures that are organizational, financial, whatever the broad categories we say are, so that we don't have to try to use that language and try to fit it in. It would be the same language.
If I remember correctly, I think it's a 2-year. I'm having Sarah look at it right now. I'll get you an answer in just a couple minutes.
Does that make sense to you? So that we can just rewrite that to make it fit the reality of what we're trying to do, instead of how
Yeah.
can we make that fit this? You look nervous.
No, no, and that'll be for a consensus of the council if they would want to do that when we come up on the next renewal period.
So you're just saying reword that, especially that
Andrew,
number
do you
2.
have anything to say on that?
Yeah, Mayor, if I can add, I think that the contract is continuous until terminated. So
That's correct.
if you want to
That's right, we
make an
just changed
amendment
that.
to it, you can do that anytime during the period of the contract. I don't think that you have to wait until any specific time. As long as the, consensus of the quorum of the council is on board with that, and of course, the other party to the contract is on board with that, then, the amendments can happen whenever you want them to. There's not really a true renewal anymore, because I think the amendment last year made it continuously renew.
So it's
If I
in
remember
That's
perpetuity.
correct. The first 2 years were set, and then
Yep, after that.
the next one is until terminated.
And I can read
By
it
either party.
directly from the contract. This agreement shall be effective as of the date first set forth above and shall remain in full force and effect until terminated by either the town or the manager as set forth below. So there
So
doesn't,
it's in perpetuity until, okay.
So I guess we got some homework to do and turn these back in. Is that what we're gonna, everybody in agreement with that?
What did you envision?
Well, I think that goals need to be set. And then an agreement to, what I think would be helpful is first setting a purpose with the goals that you want to be achieved. And then setting up some type of process where the communication, the two-way communication or group setting communication happens on a regular basis to ensure that there are no misunderstandings. Expectations are very clear throughout the process. If updates need to be made, they're made. I think that's what we need to do.
Right, I agree. This will be the starting point, so if you have other things that you would like to see on here, then would fill out that form and turn it in to us. And then it sounds like, we've already agreed previously that we're gonna try to meet one-on-one and get those meetings set up, and I've reached out to you all for that. But I wasn't sure if we wanted to go 6 months for the group or quarterly for the group. I think that's something we should decide
I
on.
think 6 months, as long as we're doing a monthly one-on-one, that's plenty.
There's a reason that there's 7 of us, and we got 2 of us sitting in here which have not commented yet, and I won't go forward until we get their opinion. Sorry.
Okay.
I didn't mention any names, but Sherry and Annie.
With their initials are sharing in?
I'm okay with it. I'm just listening, and I'm okay with what you're saying.
That would narrow it down to one left.
And her opinion is important here.
Don't forget your microphone, girl.
Okay, this meeting was scheduled from 6 to 8. So Laura, did you have in mind that we do this now?
I am open to anything that you want to do. If you want to absorb what we've discussed right now, kind of gets your thoughts in order, and we maybe have another work session, or if you're ready to move forward with this recommendation, set your goals, and we can consolidate them. Performance management seems like a little bit overwhelming at times to some folks, but at the end of the day, it gets a lot simpler and it makes things more streamlined in the end. So
Can I,
whatever you decide, if you want to absorb it and just kind of get your thoughts in order, we can do that too.
what do you think? I'm just gonna ask you what you think the broad, we're not talking about specifics, but broad areas of your job are. So this is what I just wrote down. There's a personnel side, everything related to personnel. There's a financial side, everything related to financial. There's a property management side, so it has everything to do with property management, ensuring that we don't lose all our equipment and trucks and stuff. What else, what other broad areas? Capital improvements,
Oh, yeah.
so CIPs.
Public
I'd say-
relations.
Yeah, public
Yeah.
relations, I
There you
would say
go.
regional collaboration,
Well, public relations would
cover that.
probably encompass all that, right? Is there any other broad categories?
Personnel,
Who's got personnel?
policies.
So do you think the policies would
Procedures.
govern under town council? Would we be able to wrap that into like the town council section?
What about services to
And-
citizens?
I mean, I think that covers most of it.
So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 broad categories. And then underneath each category, we come up with some measures that would or there would be goals that would be measurable that you could do it. So there's 7 of us total. We could all just take, we could all just take one, just have one person focus on them, come up with goals, do some research. Then we all bring them back together, tweak them, so that we're not all trying to do the same thing.
That's one idea. Yeah, I agree with you. I also like Annie's idea, let's just knock it out right now while we're sitting here.
I don't think that was my idea. I think that's what the intent was.
No, I didn't, well, I'm sorry, but, excuse me. You know what I mean?
No.
I like that idea too, where we're all sitting here and we can come up with,
We could do that, but sometimes you have to do research on like what
Yeah.
all is out there. You know,
and
because I can't
maybe
think-
we can't get them all settled to date right now, but we could get some of them done.
You know, because for like me, I'm just thinking like personnel, okay? Are you keeping adequate staffing levels? Are you appropriately addressing hard-to-fill positions? Are you ensuring your staff are trained and maintain their certifications? Are your staff being paid appropriately? Do you have like a TNA audits and stuff? Time and attendance and pay audits?
Oh, it's all done, yeah.
Yeah, and when there's a correction, does it cost the town money?
We don't have corrections because we're spot on.
Even with the police department?
Well, we don't really have any errors, and if we do have a missed punch, then we can pay them the additional missed monies, but that's not on the,
So we don't pay another outside vendor for every correction? We don't pay like
No.
$2 a correction or whatever?
Oh, no, no.
Oh, okay.
no.
So that's not.
We pay for processing.
Okay. So if you have to process someone's corrected TNA, does that cost us?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
But we'll wait until the next pay period to
Oh, to
correct it
correct
if
it.
it is
All
an
right.
employee error. If it's an employer error, we correct it immediately, which, thank goodness, we have a great payroll team, and that's not often that happens.
So that would just be like one area, and we'd come up with a bunch of goals and measurable just for that one broad category.
Is it getting too far into the weeds? I don't know.
That sounds like something you ought to be doing for her evaluation.
I think this should be at a broader level.
And in today's world, I don't know how you can say, is anybody anywhere keeping adequate employee level?
Well, that would be a
With the
struggle.
difficulty in getting people.
Is it achievable? I don't know in this current market. And,
I mean, we can
how
always
much
put a
control does she have?
percentage, Maintain 90% staffing levels, and if she's over 95, then she's exceeded the goal.
But what if Prescott ups their pay for whatever and everybody runs there? You know, like the whole police thing that we face every 6 or 8 months. When they go up and then Prescott Valley goes up and then we go up and then Prescott goes up and
They're all
SL
in
goes
it
up.
to cahoots, you know.
And I agree with you, but still, it's a case where we're losing people and it's just, I mean, people are leaving for a
Well,
dollar.
if we
or
don't
two.
want that, that's fine. I'm just throwing out ideas.
I'm just
yeah.
throwing out an idea too.
Yeah.
I'm not dogging what you're saying. I agree with you, but there got to be a better way to word it somehow. You know, with available staff without a percentage rate, because, I mean, just look at even getting supplies. Like if you need supplies, like if we needed that station done to in order to employ more people, we'd already be 6 months behind because of waiting on stuff.
And
No, manager should have gone and got it. That's right. Got it.
And Mayor and Council, if you look in the personnel management, I think that's why we started with some broader goals of things that we think will better help manage personnel. And then as we drill down into our department heads and supervisors, that's where you get more into, are you keeping the time right? Those kind of things. But if you look at these broad ones I look here, make sure the employee handbook is updated so that they have a good reference. Make sure they have training opportunities to improve their skill levels. make sure there's succession plannings and develop future leaders. And then also want to develop and implement a performance management framework for our organization. These things we talk about here in this process, but in a deeper level, you know, for the employees to get away from them just getting an evaluation once a year, for them to have this kind of process as well, so they can be successful. So try to look at more broader areas rather than the details of the,
Well, it's for us,
Details of
I know,
them.
but for us to give you, we have to have measure. We have to have some objective, tangible way to measure it. So we can't just go too broad. There's got to be a goal that's measurable that any third party can look at and say, yeah, that's the score. So we get broad in the category, but we got to get down into a little bit of the weeds. Otherwise, there's no measurable goal. How do you measure success?
right, and I think we're gonna work more, go through these and put them in this SMART
Yes.
exercise and
Yeah.
get to that level.
But it is tricky because you're at a higher level, so you can't be so specific that
You can in some areas.
In some,
Yeah,
yes.
yes, you can in some.
you can be clear on what the achievement requires or what the measurement, what type of measurement is required, but it doesn't have to be so specific that you're getting down to percentages and things like that, but a broader achievement of a specific, you can go over budget for the set goal for the fiscal year or something. You maintained, I don't know, revenues at a certain level, or I don't know, that's kind of even, I don't know if that's how achievable that is.
Yep.
The personnel management and having somebody on board to take anybody's job, in that second thing, it says, but specifically excluding any evaluation of the manager's hiring and firing decisions with respect to individual staff members. Takes that out of the loop for me. I mean, I'm not gonna come in here and say, how come you hired Joe Blow and didn't get rid of Hector or whatever, you know? It's not in our purview to go over that,
Yeah.
I think.
No, but I agree with you, but it is good to know that I'm properly managing the personnel management, but that we have processes in place for our
Yes.
personnel management.
Does there need to be a social climate? So you don't want to rate, you don't want to rate personality, okay? But there is room for personality. You give it a very low percentage of the whole thing. So the measurable stuff, all this and that, would be like 90% of the eval. But leaders do need the feedback about leadership style that might, that's more personality. You're talking about their personality. You don't want to give a lot of meat, but there is room for that so that they do know. I mean, that's what they're doing all the way up to the senior executive staffs at the cabinet levels. They do have that all the way up as high as you can go. That is a measure, but it's given the lowest percentage of weight to the overall evaluation. Because they need to know how are they leading the morale of their departments or their agencies or their institutions or wherever they're at. That is an important leadership function, but you don't want to. Some people are real hard chargers and they drive and and they're effective with their goals. Some are very persuasive and maybe not as good, whatever. But there's got to be a little bit of room in there because they need that feedback for their own personal development. But you don't want to give it a lot of weight to the overall evaluation because then you're rating personality.
I think it's an indirect effect. Personality and behavior is indirect to the direct goals, and it'll play a role in it, but I don't know that it should be evaluated because naturally it will affect.
But there can be a comment section at the end for you to provide feedback.
That's it.
Doesn't that kind of fit into overall management style?
That's what I
It's
think
listed
too.
as one of these? I mean, we may be jumping off the cliff with some of this stuff, trying to.
You know, I'm thinking after we're talking this over, maybe we need to take this home and chew on it. Think about what we want to do. Maybe we can get that contract out to everybody, all 7.
I think it's right here.
That's just that's not the whole contract. That's just the portion, the evaluation portion. Maybe send that out to everybody, and then we can all look at it and come up with our ideas and submit them back in. Do we need to meet? Would you guys like to meet like this again, or just send them in and let them compile and sort and come up with a rebuttal and then get together, or what's the pleasure?
Phew.
I have no problem filling it out and sending it in.
I have no problem with that. No,
Okay.
Cindy, and let Cindy try to group them into
No, we'll give it
the
to
areas
Laura.
you think they would fit in there.
And then we could get together like this again and then down, like in a couple, 3 weeks or so. That means we're gonna have to get these in. There's a couple, 3 weeks pushing it.
I guess it depends on how quick they come in.
That's true.
Who do you go to? Do you want a copy of what I send her?
I would like to have it wrapped up by the beginning of the fiscal year if we can.
That's July 1.
Mhm.
So that gives us month and a half, a little about. So maybe by next week, we need to have these in. And then she can compile them and then come up with a thing and we can meet again. Maybe 1st of June and then hopefully have an answer. Okay or no okay? I'm throwing out a suggestion, not,
I'm gonna put her on the spot again. Lady's been on P and Z and on council a long time, and I still haven't heard anything from her about what she thinks about this. I don't mean to put you on the spot, but you are.
Well,
I respect your opinion is the backbone of it.
thank you. Well, this will make it easier to review and update the goals. I yield.
And I think that was the point, to try to make it a better process and an easier process for everyone, so.
I got a question. So at the end of let's just say we're at the end of the year, we've implemented all this, and we're doing all the goals. We'd go meet in the back room, Cindy would go through and say, okay, this is what I achieved, boom, boom, boom. Then would we decide whether, we have to decide how do we rate that? Is it met the measure, exceeded the measure, outstanding, did not meet the measure? We have to come up with some type of, that way we can place an attribute to each thing and give her a score.
I would recommend meets or does not meet. Just leave it plain and simple. Ratings are very difficult, so either you met it or you didn't meet it.
And there's no room for exceeding it?
Well, if you exceeded it, you still met it. It's your decision how you want to do that. And then if you decide that you want a 3-pronged rating, clearly defining those ratings, so everybody's on the same page and understands the definition of each, you can absolutely do that. And that should be the easy part,
Tom, how you
because
feel about that?
this
I
will
like
get you
being
the
able to
answers that
put
you need.
comments at the end, you know, met, didn't meet, and then a comment section on the end where, yeah, she was well over, or you just barely there, so, you know.
Okay, so we got a comment section in the back. And then we're gonna do a meets at one time, or are we gonna do it at each category, each of the 4 categories?
And this is for every town manager here, from here out forward.
Yes, yeah,
That's the objective, but
that's what we're trying to do.
If it
Come up
doesn't
with
work,
something
then, you know.
everybody would like
Mhm.
and not have heartache with.
So these filled-in goals, are they the actual goals, or those are just
That's just a
filled in?
proposed,
Okay. those-
yeah,
just for discussion.
very basic initial goal that has not gone through the SMART goal process. Solely ideas.
Yeah, because I mean, that one that says general plan, that's pretty much done, isn't it?
And the employee handbook is, isn't it?
Ma'am?
The employee handbook?
I don't know about it.
It's in the works.
So like, let's just assume for the sake of discussion, last year you had these in the general plan. It would be ensure the general plan is updated as required by state law. So then this year, because it wouldn't be done during the rating period, you could say we had a steering committee, we put a committee together, we selected the contractor, we met with them, we've done this, we've done the outreach. We're 80% of the way through, we're just waiting for council and ratification.
And that
Right.
was, I do agree with that. With this last evaluation, there was no place in there to even cover that.
Right,
You know, and that's took up a lot of time and effort by a lot of people.
right. And then your eval would filter down to your department heads, so then you can hold them responsible for following up on yours.
And it is inevitable that some of the goals will be multi-year. You know, some of the projects are really big, so we'll run into that, but we'll make sure that that's outlined when we set the goals.
Yeah, but you can say, I want to achieve my master's degree by, you know, this year I'll take 2 classes and next year I'll take 2 classes until, you know, but your ultimate goal is to achieving your master's or whatever the case may be.
I just want to get my GED.
Okay, anything else? Anybody got anything? We're all good, all done? Annie, you got something?
I just need a few minutes to think about some things.
Take your time.
I like the idea of doing it in 2 different areas. Performance management and performance appraisal.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's very smart. No pun intended in that.
Not tonight. I don't think I can go through this and completely evaluate and be ready to.
You know, after I said that, I agree with you, and then after other things were brought up, and then applying the SMART process to it, there's a lot of work there,
It is, on the front
know.
end, a lot.
so I agree.
I need to go back and compare with the evaluation we just did and see where this stuff hopefully fits in there, and if not, going, why doesn't it, or it shouldn't be, or whatever. But that's just me.
Cindy, if I send some goals to you, broad goals, can you, through whoever your assigned department head is that's germane to that goal, can you finish some of the, like, can you fill in some of the text language to make it reality?
Yes, and that's what we're hoping for. Whatever feedback you have for us, we'll try to incorporate it and make it fit in the
All right.
process
So I
to
may
bring
se-
back for you
I
all.
may send like, no waste, fraud, and abuse by ensuring a clean audit. And then you can use the real language that would be germane to our annual fiscal audit.
And we wouldn't even have to fit our things into the category. You guys could do that,
Yeah,
right?
we
Yeah.
could fit it into
Like
the
if we
4
felt-
elements.
Right.
Okay.
And we can
So you're gonna be,
Just
put
come
them in
up-
the SMART
you'll be
thing.
working
Just want your
Is it okay
feedback
then?
and what you
Oh, yeah.
think
Okay.
we should be accomplishing in the next year.
because I may give you a goal and say, look, for this year, 50% of achievable, that goal is realistic. Okay, so achieve it. And then when you come at the end of the year, you only achieve 30%, then you didn't meet it. You know what I mean? Next year, the year after that would be the 100%, you know? But you'll have to decide on some of these, what's realistic. Because I won't know. I'll have it in my mind, but I don't know if it's realistic. You know, the master water plan, well, it could take a while. you know, with all the bidding process, and then whoever gets a job, it could take 2 years to do it.
Yeah, so definitely we can vet all of that out. We're just looking for your input and ideas.
Okay. And that's what you're gonna get from me. You'll have to fill in some of the blanks.
That's what we're here for.
I know, are you good?
Fine.
I'm not hearing
Was I
much out of
breathing
the
that long?
attorney.
Mm-hmm.
Because we haven't said anything wrong.
I'm
with
having
that.
to run
Yeah, well, I don't know if I believe that either.
Well,
I knew that'd bring
I
it
wouldn't
forward.
say that.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I thought.
I thought he was in REM sleep. Who's gonna get Eric caught up? Who's gonna get Eric caught up?
I was gonna put these in his mailbox and I'll talk to him.
Okay,
Unless
that's
you
a-
want to.
No,
you
no,
can.
I mean, go ahead, but he needs to be part of this,
I
for
agree.
sure.
I agree. I'll put these in his mailbox so he can get them tomorrow, yesterday.
I'm sure you'll look at it.
And
We have
then
a mailbox?
I can make sure he gets the minutes from this meeting as well.
Bob doesn't know he has a mailbox.
That's why, is
You
yours
don't
that one
know-
that's that
you don't
full?
know you have a mailbox?
No, sir.
After this, follow me.
I didn't
Okay, I'll show you.
Oh, you don't know either?
Wait, should I put that down on here? I didn't know.
You know,
They had a
you didn't tell
mailbox.
me for like 2 months, and then they're like, hey, you gotta check your mail.
Okay, so whose job was that to tell
You've
us
got
about
mail.
we had a mailbox?
You-
Was that the town manager's?
Yours.
Yeah, you do that just before you adjourn.
It
I'll
must be,
show you.
it must be full.
Probably is.
Probably can't even close the drawer.
You probably got a bunch of subpoenas in there.
Where I keep all my smiles.
Yeah, obviously. That was perfect.
Well done, Bob, well done.
Thank you.
Nothing for me.
I'm sorry.
Nothing for me.
All right then. We're adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you guys
Thank you.
Thank you.
very much, and thank you for the work you're gonna put that. Come with
Isn't
me.
that
I'll show you
Sherry?
your mailbox. Huh?
Isn't that Sherry's job
Hey,
to
check your
adjourn?
email, I already did it.
Not. This is kind of formal.
Yeah, Bob.
I'm sorry, Sherry. I should have let you do it.